For most of my life, I never expected much from my parents. I suppose that's how you survive in a house that only claps when one child is shining and you're not the chosen one. So when Melissa and Frank invited me to our family restaurant to celebrate my graduation, I felt something crack open inside me. Not in a loud, obvious way, but quietly, like a drawer you've long forgotten finally sliding open. The restaurant was dressed in silver and blue streamers, with one of those big, cheesy banners you buy from a party supply store. Congrats, Emily, all caps, like they were really trying. Real food lined the buffet, not takeout or half-eaten pizza like usual. For a second, just a second, I let my shoulders relax. Frank clapped me on the back and gave me that grin he usually reserves for Tyler. First college grad in the family, huh? He said, like he hadn't spent 4 years forgetting what I studied. Melissa kissed my cheek. She actually meant it. I think. I saw a few of their friends from work, some extended relatives I hadn't seen since high school, even Miss Lisa, my old literature teacher. Everyone smiled. People toasted. I answered questions about future plans. It was weird, like stepping into a version of my life where I was the one they noticed. Tyler, of course, sat in the corner scrolling through his phone, like even this tiny acknowledgement of me was a personal inconvenience. But for the first time, I didn't care. I was floating, lightheaded with the warmth of being seen, until the cake arrived. Melissa brought it out with 2 hands and a bright, showy smile. It was huge, frosted, elegant, definitely not a last-minute grocery store order. I leaned in. Congratulations, loser. At first, I thought it was a typo. Maybe the bakery made a mistake. I looked up, confused. Then I heard Frank's laughter, low at first, then full-on belly-shaking guffaws. Melissa covered her mouth like she was embarrassed, but her eyes crinkled with amusement. Tyler practically fell off his chair, choking on his drink from laughing so hard. "Oh, come on, Em," Frank said, wiping his eyes. "It's just a joke, because that's what I was to them, the responsible one, the background character, the built-in backup plan." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because something inside me shifted clean, sharp, irreversible. I lifted my glass and stood up, the air thinning around me. My voice was calm. "To always being exactly who you've shown me you are." The room fell silent. "To the party," I added. "The effort. The thought. I'll never forget it." Their grins flickered, faltered. Even Tyler stopped smiling. Melissa shifted awkwardly. "And to the future," I said, raising the glass just a little higher. "Because I finally learned how to treat all of you the way you've always treated me." I drank, set the glass down, picked up my bag, and just like that, I left the restaurant behind streamers fluttering in the air, laughter still echoing faintly in my mind. But not before whispering one last thing as I passed Frank's stunned face. "Oh, and one more thing. You'll figure it out soon enough." I didn't need their cake. I was about to serve something colder. Growing up, the restaurant was always loud, clanging pans, customers laughing, Frank yelling out orders like he was running a 5-star kitchen, not a small-town family diner with vinyl booths and sticky floors. But in the middle of all that chaos, I learned how to be quiet. Tyler never had to. He was loud, messy, magnetic, one of those people who could knock over a tray of glasses and somehow get applauded for being passionate. I, on the other hand, was invisible unless something needed fixing. When I was 7, I won a county-wide poetry contest. Tiny gold plaque, laminated certificate, the whole deal. I rushed into the kitchen, clutching it like it was a treasure map. Frank barely glanced at it. "Cute," he said, "but maybe focus on something more practical next time." Melissa just smiled, one of those distracted checkout line at the grocery store smiles, and went right back to slicing tomatoes. That same day, Tyler made a volcano out of baking soda and orange soda. They put it on display near the register for a week. By the time I turned 12, I stopped showing them my report cards. Straight A's didn't matter when Tyler barely passed and still got a new gaming console to motivate him. When he scraped into community college barely, by the skin of his teeth, they threw him a huge dinner at the restaurant. Rented out the entire side room, streamers, balloons, cake that said, "So proud of you, Ty." When I got accepted to university on a full ride, mind you, Frank didn't even look up from wiping the counter. Melissa just said, "That's nice, honey. Don't forget to send us your class schedule." I never expected help with tuition. I didn't even ask. I applied for scholarships, took shifts at the coffee shop across campus, worked double during the holidays when the restaurant needed extra hands and they couldn't afford to hire staff. And you know what? I told myself that was fine, that I didn't need fanfare, that I didn't need them to clap. But some small, stupid part of me still hoped that one day they'd finally stop seeing me as the one who didn't need anything. That maybe, just maybe, they'd treat me like more than a second string. I didn't realize how deep it went until the lease. Tyler had flunked out again. His GPA was a joke. He couldn't hold a part-time job, and he had the emotional maturity of a wet napkin. But somehow, Frank and Melissa found another school willing to take him. They lined up everything: a new apartment near campus, tuition loan. Melissa even offered to stock his fridge before move-in. And then Frank turned to me over breakfast and said, "You'll co-sign his lease, right? You've got good credit. It won't cost you anything. Not even a question, not even a pause. Like my signature, my stability was just another tool for them to use." And of course, I said yes, not because I wanted to, but because I was trained to. That was the moment, the one where I realized it wasn't about not seeing me. It was about not valuing me, not respecting me. They saw Tyler as a fire that needed tending, and me, I was just a candle on standby, flickering quietly, always there, always expected to stay lit, until that night at the restaurant, until that cake, until the word loser was piped in perfect pink cursive across my future. And suddenly, I wasn't quiet anymore. There's something strange about silence in a crowded room. You feel it before you notice it. It hums beneath the laughter, curling like mist between wine glasses and paper plates. That's what it felt like as I stood there, glass in hand, in the middle of a restaurant full of people who just watched my humiliation and decided to laugh. They weren't cruel, not openly, not with words. No one had thrown anything or called me names to my face, but it was all in the way they looked at each other and then at me, like I was the only one who didn't get the joke, like I should have known better than to think this party, this effort, this cake was ever for me. And the thing is, I had known better, but I let myself hope, just for one night. That's what made it sting. I looked at Frank first. He was still chuckling, a bit too proud of himself. Probably thought it was clever, that little message on the cake. He was the kind of man who thought sarcasm was a love language, the kind who weaponized humor, then hid behind it like a shield. Melissa's laughter was more nervous, forced. Her eyes darted between me and the others. She wasn't cruel either, just complicit. She always was, a passive participant in whatever nonsense Frank and Tyler cooked up. Her love came with disclaimers. Don't make it awkward. Don't overreact. Just smile and be easy. Tyler, he was practically choking on his drink, clutching his stomach like someone just showed him the funniest meme of the year. That was his role, really spoiled, unaccountable, and completely oblivious to how deeply his carelessness cut. The rest of the room fell into uncomfortable stillness. A few of Melissa's church friends avoided eye contact. Aunt Rachel gave me a half smile, a little sorry, a little proud. I even caught Miss Lisa frowning at the cake like she wanted to scrape the frosting off herself. But no one said anything. Not one person stood up. So I did it myself. I raised the glass slowly. I didn't toast with a clink or a grin. I didn't clear my throat or call for attention. I just began to speak, to always being exactly who you've shown me you are. The quiet that followed wasn't sharp, it was dense, like a fog rolling into a canyon. You could feel it settle into people's lungs. Frank blinked, confused. Melissa straightened in her seat. Tyler finally stopped laughing. To this party, I continued, gesturing with my glass toward the streamers and half-eaten appetizers and to the decorations and the cake. So much effort, so much thought. I'll never forget it. Melissa's smile fell. Frank's hand dropped from his glass. Into the future, I paused. Let it hang, because now I know exactly how to treat all of you. I took a single, calm sip, then set my glass down. I looked each of them in the eye, and I smiled. Not a warm smile, not an I forgive you smile. It was quiet, icy, the kind of smile you wear when you've made up your mind and nothing they do can touch you anymore. They didn't know it, but in that moment, I'd already made the first move. After I left the restaurant, I sat in my car for a while. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I opened my notes app and pulled up the number I had saved weeks ago, the leasing manager for Tyler's new apartment. I had planned to wait, be the dutiful daughter, the supportive sister, Let them have this win. Let them believe I was still the same, Emily, quiet, agreeable, useful. But the cake changed that. I dialed the number, placed the call, and with a few formal words, I withdrew my name from the lease. That was all it took. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just a quiet, final click. My signature, my safety net was gone. And with it, Tyler's second chance. For the next few days, I didn't answer calls. I didn't respond to texts. I carried on like normal, went for walks, did some reading, even meal prepped for the week. Every once in a while, I'd glance at my phone as the missed calls started piling up. It started with confusion. Emily, sweetheart, Melissa said in her first voicemail. There's something odd with the lease. The manager called and said your name wasn't on it anymore. Could you check? Then came concern disguised as chaos. Did you forget something? Frank asked. Because Tyler just got a call. His lease might be void. This is serious, Em. And finally, inevitably came rage. What the hell did you do? Frank barked into the receiver, voice hot with fury. You gave your word. That lease is your responsibility. I didn't respond. Because here's the thing about being the forgotten one. No one expects you to fight back. They expect compliance, silence, utility. So when you finally do take a stand, it shocks them more than if you'd set the place on fire. But this wasn't about fire. This was about ice. On the evening of day 10, I got a text from Tyler. You better fix this. Now, no greeting, no thank you, no apology, just entitlement. I smiled again, same cold smile from the restaurant. They thought the cake was the punchline, but the joke, the real joke, it had only just begun. It took them 11 days to realize they had no backup plan. At first, they operated under the assumption that I'd made a mistake, that maybe I'd clicked the wrong box on the lease form or forgotten to return a call. Melissa even left a voicemail in her softest voice, the one she used when she was trying to avoid confrontation. Emily, honey, she said, dragging out the words like she was petting a cat. I know things got a little weird at the party, but this is serious. Tyler's apartment lease is in jeopardy. Can you just call them back and fix it? I listened to that message twice, not because I was debating my response, but because it was oddly fascinating how she still danced around the actual issue. There was no apology, no acknowledgement, just the subtle assumption that I would make things right. Like I always did. Frank took a different approach. His message was shorter, harsher. You gave your word, Emily. This is on you. Tyler's depending on you. Be a damn adult and clean up your mess. Funny. I didn't remember giving my word. I remembered being told what I would do. There's a difference. Tyler didn't bother with diplomacy. His first text was, you need to fix this. My move-in date is in 3 days. I didn't reply. The second one said, you're screwing me over. For what? A stupid joke? That one made me laugh out loud. A stupid joke. As if all the years leading up to that cake had been perfectly balanced and respectful. As if my pain was a punchline, but his inconvenience was a tragedy. By the time day 14 rolled around, the tone had shifted. Less commanding, more desperate. Melissa tried to FaceTime me twice. I ignored it both times. She left a third voicemail, voice cracking now. Emily, the landlord won't let Tyler move in without a co-signer. His financial aid hasn't cleared, we thought. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. I already knew what they thought. They thought I would bail them out. They thought I would keep being dependable. They thought I was still the good daughter. I went to a yoga class that night, got a smoothie, came home, and lit a candle that smelled like eucalyptus and vanilla. I sat on my tiny balcony with a blanket around my shoulders, and for the first time in years, I felt still, not numb, not angry, just still. Because for the first time, the storm wasn't inside me. It was somewhere else, brewing over their heads. The next voicemail came the morning of what was supposed to be Tyler's move-in day. Frank sounded like someone who just had a conversation with a banker and didn't like what he heard. You've made your point. You've punished us. Is that what you wanted? He paused, then added, you've always been smarter than this petty crap. Don't stoop to this level. Ah, the guilt card. The you're better than this manipulation. Classic Frank. I deleted the message. Day 17 brought the first real emergency. Tyler called 5 times in a row. I let it ring. Then came the text. The school's saying the tuition deposit didn't go through. What the hell is going on? You said you'd help, and there it was. The other shoe. See, backing out of the lease was just phase one. What they didn't realize was that I had stopped everything. The quiet Venmo transfers I used to make for them when the electric bill was short, gone. The extra groceries I happened to pick up when I visited, stopped. The monthly tuition deposit they assumed I'd handle for Tyler, never made, because I had been subsidizing their life without even realizing it. And now the training wheels were off. Day 19, Melissa called crying. Not sniffles, not theatrical tears, real, panicked sobs. Emily, she said, Tyler's been dropped from his enrollment list. He doesn't have enough credit to sign a new lease on his own. They've put him on housing wait list. He has nowhere to go. I waited a beat before responding. Sounds like a him problem. Silence. It stretched for so long I thought maybe the call had dropped. Finally, she whispered, "How can you be so cold?" That made me pause. Not because I felt guilty, but because it was almost funny. Cold? I had spent years being warm, burning myself at both ends to keep them comfortable. I had been fire, and they had kept taking more heat. And now, for the first time, I had turned into ice. Cold? I said calmly. No, I'm just done setting myself on fire for people who bring marshmallows. She cried harder. You're tearing the family apart. I smiled faintly. No, Mom, I'm just done pretending I belong in it. Then I hung up. Day 21, Frank showed up at my apartment. He pounded on the door like a cop with a warrant. I didn't open it. I didn't even move. He shouted things like, "You're ruining Tyler's future. And you think you're punishing us, but you're just being vindictive." But I wasn't. This wasn't revenge. This was math. It was about balancing the equation, about restoring weight where it had been unbalanced for so long. They had spent decades giving Tyler all the cushion, all the chances, all the fallback options. I was the net, the emergency plan, the invisible daughter. Not anymore. Day 22. I finally answered Tyler's call. His voice was brittle, cracked. I'm gonna have to move back home. I didn't say anything. I lost my spot at school. I can't get a lease. I've applied for some jobs, but no one's calling back. What am I supposed to do? I let the question hang. Then I said, "Figure it out." He choked on a laugh. "You're doing this to hurt me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because I finally understand something." "What?" "That you were never supposed to win. You were just never supposed to fall, because I was always the one holding you up." That night, I slept like a stone, because the cracks had started to show. Not just in Tyler's world, but in theirs. In Frank's confidence. In Melissa's calm. For the first time, they were scrambling, flailing. And I was still, because the fallout had finally hit. And I hadn't felt this free in years. They stopped calling for a few days. I wasn't surprised. That's how it always went: pull back, reset, regroup. Frank had probably launched into one of his rants about how I was always ungrateful. Melissa, no doubt, was crying into a glass of cheap wine, wondering what she'd done to deserve this. Tyler? He was likely pacing in the basement, blaming the world for another door closing. But I knew they'd be back, because they still didn't know how bad it really was. Not yet. See, cutting off the cosign and tuition money, that was the start, the surface, the part they could see. But the deeper unraveling, that was what they hadn't prepared for. The bank notifications, the overdue statements, the bounced check Melissa wrote to the vendor who supplied the restaurant's linens, the utilities that were past due, because I wasn't quietly covering the gaps anymore. I wasn't their safety net. Not anymore. It was a Friday night when the final shoe dropped. I had just sat down on my couch, a warm mug of tea in hand, wrapped in a blanket that didn't smell like stress or compromise. My phone buzzed. 6 missed calls from Tyler, 3 from Melissa, 2 from the restaurant's landline, then finally Frank. I let it go to voicemail, but this time I listened. His voice wasn't angry anymore. It was strained, tired, defeated. "You win," he said, like the words hurt. "Tyler's back home. We can't get him into any school now. He doesn't qualify for aid anymore without a co-signer." And the restaurant. He trailed off, then added quieter, "We're late on everything. Everything you used to handle, we didn't realize how much you were covering." That line sat heavy in my chest. Not because it hurt, but because it was the first time he said something close to honest. No accusations, no manipulations, just a glimpse of realization, and still too little, too late. The next day, Melissa tried again. This time, she didn't cry. Not right away. Her voice was steady, polite, a performance of dignity. "Emily," she said, "we'd like to talk. Not to fight, just to talk. We know you're upset." "Upset?" as if this were about one moment, one cake, one word in pink frosting. I almost laughed, but instead, I answered, calm, level. I'm not upset. She sounded surprised. You're not? No, I said. I'm finished. Another silence. I was getting used to those. She sighed. You're punishing all of us for something Tyler did. I raised an eyebrow, even though she couldn't see it. You really think this is just about Tyler? She hesitated. He's your brother. No, I replied. He's your golden boy, your second chance project, your precious mess that you keep rebuilding at the cost of everything and everyone else. Her voice cracked. We didn't know you were struggling. I took a breath. That's the point, Mom. You never asked. You never looked. You only saw me when I was useful, never when I was drowning. She started crying again. Real tears, I think. You have to forgive us. I closed my eyes, let the words sit there for a second, then opened my mouth and gave her the kindest, truest thing I could. No, Mom. I don't. I don't have to do anything for any of you ever again. They kept trying, not daily, not desperately, but sporadically, as if testing the waters, seeing if I'd cave. I didn't. They sent holiday cards, left birthday voicemails, sent a few emails, small updates about the restaurant, or how Tyler was trying to get back on his feet. I didn't respond, because this time I wasn't playing the long game. I wasn't waiting for them to change. I wasn't hoping for reconciliation. I wasn't building towards some dramatic reunion. I was done, and being done doesn't mean bitterness. It means freedom. I heard through Aunt Rachel that Tyler was working part-time at the restaurant now, living back at home, still talking big about his next move, but doing little more than scrolling through his phone and blaming the system. Melissa had taken a second job, quietly. Frank was struggling to keep the business afloat without the quiet buffer of my help. The truth is, they had built a system that only worked if I was in it, if I stayed in place, silent, supportive, selfless. And now that I'd stepped out of it, the whole thing was collapsing. But I wasn't watching gleefully. I wasn't celebrating. I was moving forward. One night, I stood in front of my mirror, brushing my hair, and realized how much lighter my face looked. Like I'd peeled off a mask I didn't know I was wearing. That girl, the one who tolerated the jokes, smiled through the slights, and co-signed a lease for someone who couldn't say thank you, she was gone. Not burned out, not broken, rebuilt. Frank once told me, family is everything, and for the longest time, I believed that meant sacrifice. But now I know, family isn't supposed to be the weight you drag behind you. It's supposed to be the hand that helps you rise, and if it's not, then you let go. I still keep that voicemail from Frank, the one where he says, "We didn't realize how much you were covering." Sometimes I play it, not out of spite, not to gloat, but as a reminder that when people finally see your value, it's often when you stop giving it to them. So no, I didn't set their world on fire. I just stopped holding it up, and I've never looked back. Story 2. I never imagined that the ugliest chapter of my life would start with a brunch invitation. My name's Lucas. I'm 30, and just a few months ago, I thought I had everything I'd ever wanted: great job, cozy house, and a wife I adored. Her name was Emma. She was 28, smart, charming, and someone I believed I'd grow old with. We'd been married just over a year, together for 3. Everything felt solid, until it didn't. We met through a dating app. Typical swipe right love story. Chemistry hit fast, and within a year, we were living together. I proposed not long after, and we got married in a small, beautiful ceremony. Her parents, Victor and Marlene, welcomed me like I was their own. And honestly, that kind of warmth wasn't something I was used to. I didn't grow up in the happiest home. My parents stayed together out of some twisted sense of duty, not love. Family dinners were just exercises in passive-aggressive tension. So when I met Emma's family and saw how normal and kind they were, I fell in love with them too. They'd joke that I was the son they never had, and I started to believe that maybe this was what having real family felt like. Victor and Marlene own a massive pharmaceutical company. Emma, being their only child, worked there as a recruitment director. I always respected her hustle. She was confident, capable, and dedicated. Or at least I thought she was dedicated to the job, to us, to our future. It was a Saturday when Victor texted, asking me to drop by their house alone. No explanation, Just, we need to talk. Just you, Lucas. I didn't think much of it. Maybe something about the company? Maybe a birthday surprise for Emma? I showed up cheerful and clueless. What I walked into shattered me. Victor and Marlene looked grim, not angry, not upset, just defeated. Lucas, Marlene began gently, we need to tell you something about Emma. That sentence hit like a freight train. Turns out Emma had been seeing someone, a 21-year-old coworker, someone she hired directly into the company. Apparently, she'd been getting far too close to him, spending time outside work, telling me she had late meetings or girls' nights. But her parents noticed the signs. They confronted her. She denied everything. Still, they weren't convinced. So they hired a private investigator. That part stunned me more than the affair itself. Her own parents hired someone to spy on her. They didn't want to believe it, but when the photos came in her car outside his apartment on nights, she said she was working late. They couldn't deny it any longer. They gave me the folder. It felt like a punch straight to the ribs. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the images. Emma, laughing, entering his place, staying for hours, sometimes overnight. I don't know how I didn't collapse on the spot. Victor looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We're so sorry, Lucas. We wanted to believe her. We really did." I didn't say much. I couldn't. I stayed the night at their place because the idea of seeing her, lying beside her, pretending everything was fine, it was unbearable. I didn't sleep that night. My thoughts looped endlessly. How long had it been going on? Did she ever love me? What did I do wrong? But I knew deep down I didn't do anything wrong. I treated Emma like she was everything. Turns out that wasn't enough. The next morning I went back home early. She was still in her robe, sipping coffee, probably gearing up for another day of lying. I sat her down and asked her directly, "Are you cheating on me?" She froze. Her eyes darted, panic flickering behind them. She tried to deny it, of course she did. But then I pulled out the photos. Her face went pale. She tried to spin it, say they were just friends, that it was nothing serious. But when I pressed harder, she cracked, admitted everything. "I was just bored, Lucas," she whispered, crying. "I didn't think you'd find out." Bored. That word lit a fire in me. All I could think was, you threw away our marriage because you were bored? I don't even remember what I screamed at her. I just remember the rage, the betrayal. She ended up curled on the floor, sobbing, and I felt nothing but contempt. I told her to leave. She refused. Begged for a second chance, said she'd end it with him, but I couldn't do it. I needed space, so I packed a bag, got in my car, and drove aimlessly until I found a cheap motel. I've been staying there since. She called, texted, every day. I didn't answer, not once. After 3 days, I filed for divorce. And here's where the story takes a turn no one expected. Victor and Marlene started texting me daily, checking in, offering support. When I told my own parents about the divorce, their reaction was lukewarm at best. But my in-laws? They treated me like family still, called me their son. One night, I vented to them about how I might lose my job soon because of all the stress and unpaid leave. I didn't expect anything, just needed to talk. The next day, they asked me to come over again. Emma was there. They wanted us to discuss the house situation, who gets it, who moves out. She still had the option to stay with them. I needed the house to keep my job. She didn't like that. And then she said something that flipped the whole situation on its head. I don't see why I should be the one sacrificing. Lucas is the one who cheated. I was stunned. She claimed I had been cheating with a mutual friend, no less. Even pulled out some laughably doctored photos of me and this friend at dinner, implying something romantic. She said her affair was just revenge, that she only did it because she thought I had betrayed her first. It would have been comical if it wasn't so tragic. But here's the kicker. Emma didn't know that it was her own parents who had exposed her. Victor stood up and calmly but firmly told her the truth, that they'd hired the detective, that they'd seen everything, that they had told me everything. Emma's jaw dropped. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then she broke, accused them of betrayal, of choosing me over their daughter, screamed that she hated them, that they were supposed to be loyal to her no matter what. But Victor wasn't having it. "We raised you better than this," he said, "and you lied to us, to your husband, to yourself. You made your choices. Now you live with the consequences." She stormed out, sobbing. And that was when Victor turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "We're rewriting our will, Lucas. Everything will go to you. $2 million. They were disowning her, leaving their entire estate to me. I told them I needed time to think. Because what the hell do you even say to something like that? And that's where I was sitting in a motel, processing the fact that my soon-to-be ex-wife cheated on me and tried to frame me, and now her parents want me to inherit her entire future. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want this. But maybe it's justice. I didn't sleep much after that night. Not because of the inheritance, though. Let's be honest. $2 million is a hard thing to push out of your head, but because of the weight of it all. The betrayal, the lies, the way it all exploded in one room like some twisted play. If you'd told me a year ago that my wife would cheat on me, then lie about it, and that her own parents would cut her off and hand me their legacy, I would have laughed in your face. But here we were. I stayed quiet for a few days, kept my phone on silent. I was still in that cheap hotel off the highway, eating gas station snacks and trying to figure out what the hell my life had become. Emma tried texting me again. This time her tone had changed, less pleading, more passive-aggressive. Things like, "You turned my parents against me. Congrats. I hope you're proud of what you've done." I didn't respond. Honestly, I didn't have it in me. What was I supposed to say? Sorry I didn't keep quiet while you lied to everyone's face. I just let her stew in whatever version of reality she'd created for herself. Meanwhile, her parents kept checking in. Every day like clockwork. Victor would send a "How are you holding up?" and Marlene would follow with something like "Dinner's on us, if you need a break from hotel food." I didn't take them up on dinner, but I appreciated it. A lot. Eventually, I met up with them again. I needed to talk, face to face. We met at their house, just the three of us this time. It felt weird being back there without Emma, but also oddly comforting. They still treated me like family. There wasn't a single awkward moment, just warmth. They gave me an update on Emma, too. Not that I'd asked, but I guess they thought I should know. She'd quit the company. Walked out the day after the whole confrontation. Apparently, she packed up her office without a word, turned in her badge, and didn't even say goodbye to anyone. Her little fling, the 21-year-old, he quit too. Guess they're together now. Victor was livid. "She threw away everything," he said, shaking his head. "She was next in line to run the company, and she just walked." Marlene looked more sad than angry. I could see it in her eyes. She was heartbroken, not just for me, but for the daughter she thought she knew. They told me they still planned to revise the will, make it official. All of it, every dollar, every asset would go to me. I told them again that I needed time to think about it, because, honestly, I still wasn't sure. It felt wrong, like stealing someone's future, even if that someone burned down their own. But Victor didn't hesitate. "You earned this more than she ever did. You gave her loyalty, respect, love. She gave you betrayal. I'm not rewarding that. The thing is, I knew he was right, but I didn't want to win like this. I didn't want to be that guy, some bitter ex who cashes in on heartbreak. But I also wasn't naive. Emma didn't just cheat. She tried to flip the whole story. Lie, manipulate. She would have let her parents cut me off and never looked back if her plan had worked. That night, I called one of my closest friends, Matt. He'd been texting me nonstop since I told him the basics. We met for a drink at a quiet little bar. Told him the whole thing, top to bottom. His response? Classic Matt. "Bro, she cheated, lied, tried to ruin your name, and now her parents want to do right by you. And you're hesitating? Dude, take the money." I laughed. It felt good, honestly, just being out, talking like normal again. But he had a point. "Look," he said, sipping his beer, "you're not stealing anything. You didn't ask for this. They offered it because they want to make things right. You think she'd be losing sleep if the roles were reversed?" He was right again. Emma wouldn't lose a wink. Hell, she might have already booked a vacation with that guy. For all I knew, they were posting couple selfies with matching Starbucks cups. So the next morning, I made the call. Told Victor and Marlene I was ready to accept their decision. If they still wanted to make me the heir, I wouldn't fight it. I'll never forget the pause on the other end of the line before Victor said, "Thank you, son." That word "son" hit hard. They weren't doing this out of guilt. They were doing it out of love. Maybe not in the traditional sense, but it was real. After that, things moved quickly. They started the paperwork. I hired a new lawyer, one of their recommendations, actually. A total shark. He told me the will update wouldn't be finalized until after the divorce was complete, but it was already drafted. In legal terms, I was the designated heir. It was surreal. Around the same time, I finally got canned from my job. Not a huge shock. I'd been gone for weeks, and they needed someone reliable. Still, it stung. Losing my marriage was one thing. Losing my job on top of that? Brutal. But then Victor stepped in again, said he had a friend, another CEO, who owed him a favor. A week later, I had an interview. 2 days after that, I had a new job, better pay, remote flexibility. Honestly, it felt like life was trying to hand me a reset button. I took it. I moved out of the hotel and back into the house. Emma had stayed away after that last meltdown. I guess once her plan to blame me failed, she gave up trying. She left some stuff behind, but I boxed it all up and dropped it off at her parents' place. No drama, just closure. She never came back for it. Meanwhile, Victor and Marlene became, well, my family. We saw each other weekly, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to sit in silence. None of us brought Emma up anymore. We didn't need to. It was weird but comforting, like this bizarre, twisted version of a second chance. We were 3 people bound by disappointment, but somehow found peace in each other's company. One night, over dinner, Marlene looked at me and said, "You know, Lucas, it's funny. We lost a daughter, but we kept a son." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded, swallowed the lump in my throat. It's been a strange ride, and it's not over yet. The divorce is still in progress, and Emma's been quiet radio silence for weeks. But something tells me this calm won't last forever. Something's coming. I can feel it. 3 weeks passed. Emma never reached out again, not once. No apology, no dramatic confrontation, no last-minute plea to undo everything. It was like she vanished, leaving behind a mess she couldn't or wouldn't clean up. And maybe that was for the best. Some endings don't need a final word. Some people don't earn closure. The divorce process dragged, like they always do. Lawyers, paperwork, uncomfortable meetings. We had to sit across from each other during mediation. I could barely look at her. She looked different, not physically, but something in her spirit. Like she was tired of pretending but too proud to admit defeat. She'd already moved in with the other guy. That came out during one of the sessions, casually dropped by her lawyer while discussing assets. No shame, no hesitation. I shouldn't have been surprised, but it still hit me in the gut. Not because I wanted her back, but because I finally realized just how little our marriage had meant to her by the end. What she and I had built over 3 years, she'd replaced it in a few weeks. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding slowly but fully. The new job was going better than expected. Remote work gave me breathing room. I bought new furniture for the house, cleared out everything that had her scent or style, every little piece of her that was still clinging to the place. I got rid of it, not out of spite, but because I couldn't heal in a home that still whispered her name. Victor and Marlene. They stayed close, closer than ever. We had weekly dinners at their house or mine. It wasn't even about the inheritance anymore. We just became family. A strange family, sure, but one bound by something real. They never pushed me to talk about Emma, and I never asked how they were dealing with her silence. It was an unspoken agreement. We'd all lost something, but we chose to hold on to what was still good. Then one afternoon, Victor called. He said, "We've decided to move forward with the will. After the divorce is finalized, it'll be official. Everything goes to you." I didn't answer right away. I'd had time to think about it. A lot of time. And deep down, I knew I'd already made peace with it. It wasn't about the money. It was about principle. About someone standing up and saying, "This isn't okay. You don't get to destroy people and walk away untouched." So I told him, "Okay, I'm ready." He sounded relieved. Maybe because he knew it meant I wasn't stuck in the past anymore, that I was finally walking forward. A few days later, the divorce was finalized. No courtroom drama, no last-minute tears, just signatures, stamps, and silence. Emma walked out of the building first. I stayed behind with my lawyer, watching her disappear down the street like a stranger. And honestly, that's all she felt like by then. A stranger I used to know. That same evening, Victor and Marlene came over. We didn't celebrate exactly, but there was wine. We toasted to survival, to honesty, to strange second chances. Victor handed me a copy of the revised will, officially signed and notarized. I was now the sole heir of their estate, $2 million. But more than that, I had a new beginning. I didn't touch the money right away. I didn't rush to upgrade my life or throw it in Emma's face. That's not who I am. Instead, I started planning carefully. Financial advisor, investment planning, a portion to charity, a portion set aside for a rainy day. I didn't want to waste it because I knew what it cost to get here. And I don't mean legally. I mean emotionally. One day, about a month after everything settled, I got a text from an unknown number. It was short. Just said, "Hope you're happy." No name. But I didn't need one. I stared at it for a while, then deleted it. I didn't even feel anger, just exhaustion. There was nothing left to say. She'd made her choices. So had I. That chapter was closed. Buried even. And here's the weird thing. Life got quiet. Not boring, just calm. Peaceful. I started waking up without a knot in my chest. Coffee tasted better. Music hit different. I took walks again. Read books. Called old friends. Laughed. Like real belly laughs that didn't feel forced. And every now and then, I'd sit on the porch with Victor and Marlene. No big talks, no deep reflections, just silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. Sometimes we'd watch the sun go down. Sometimes we'd just listen to the wind through the trees. One evening, Marlene said something I'll never forget. You know, Lucas, forgiveness doesn't always mean giving someone another chance. Sometimes it just means making peace with the past. I nodded, because she was right. Forgiveness wasn't about Emma. It was about me, letting go, moving on, and not carrying her mistakes any further than I had to. So that's where I am now. Not bitter, not broken, just free. And if there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that karma doesn't always arrive loud and dramatic. Sometimes it shows up quietly, wrapped in peace, carrying a new job, a new family, and a chance to start again. And that, my friends, is more satisfying than any revenge ever could be.